Well, I'm back to take a look at Alan Wake 2 on my RX 7900 XTX this time. And this video was supposed to have gone out sooner, but I had to scrap the footage I recorded and also wanted to add a few other things as well, which mainly pertain to the anti-aliasing. So I was made aware of an article on TechPowerUp's website that we're going to take a look at that allows us to edit the INI file. Now, if you watch my RX 6800 XT review, I spoke about the anti-aliasing that stands out at native resolution. Now, this is mainly focused at 1440p. We're going to be looking at 1440p here. At 4K, it's not as much of an issue, but you can notice here that there's quite a bit of flickering, and then we'll go through the settings right now, and we're going to see some maybe possible solutions or kind of find out what's going on here and then move on with the review. We're also going to look at the next area, which is the more demanding area. We'll also look at a bit of path tracing and kind of move along, keep things short and to the point. Okay, so as you can see here, we have FSR2 enabled at 1440p. All our settings are maxed out. The shadow detail always goes to medium every time I reset the game. I don't know why, but we'll put it back to high. Path tracing is disabled, although we'll take a look at that. Okay. On my 6800 XT look at the game, I mentioned how I thought that FSR quality looked better than FSR native. So I was thinking about this actually, because we've seen FSR native in Starfield. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it on my 6800 XT video, but AMD did talk about this at Gamescom or whatever the last event was where they announced FSR3, that they're going to be introducing this new feature called New Native AA mode for maximum fidelity. That's what they said. And this right here, I found this, it's on actually AMD's page where they talk about this mode that's coming with FSR3. Now, we know that FSR3 has come out, and as far as the super resolution aspect of it, it's still 2.2, right? Or maybe 2.3, I forget. But they do speak about this native feature coming. So now, is this FSR version that Remedy's using, which from what I heard it's 2.2, maybe not compatible to do native? I don't know, right? I just find it weird that FSR quality would look better. But anyway, just to continue on with this, AMD talks about how turning this feature on to use FSR as a form of anti-aliasing at native resolution obviously has a performance cost, and as they show here, if you were to get 53 FPS, you turn this on, you get 49 FPS. It's the same thing with NVIDIA and DLAA, right? Use DLSS for anti-aliasing, so that's not out of the ordinary. But anywho, let's jump and take a look at that TechPowerUp article, and then we'll jump and look and see what the game looks like at native without any FSR. So this is the TechPowerUp page I was talking about at the beginning of the video that will show you some of the settings that you can change and also show you where the location of your folder is. So it's going to be at your local app data folder, Remedy, Alan Wake 2, and then the render.ini. You're going to open that up, and you can change vignette, depth of field, lens distortion, which will all be set to true by default, and you can't change this in the game menu, so you're going to have to change them to false. I've heard people say that this helps with some of the aliasing. I personally tried it. I didn't really see a big difference, but this is what the INI page will look like, and you change from true to false. True means it's on, false it's off. And then MESSAA method, that's the anti-aliasing method. 0 is native, 1 is FXAA, and 3 is FSR. So we're going to take a look at native first at 0 and see what it looks like. It's very alias, so they are using some form of FSR. Or is it FXAA? I don't know, but we'll check it out and figure it out. This is what the INI file will look like if you open it up with a notepad, and you're going to change the MESSAA method from 3 to 0 to go to native, or 1 to go to FXAA, save, and relaunch the game. Let's look at it. Well, yeah, I don't think you need me to tell you that this looks much worse without any form of anti-aliasing. So yeah, they are using some form of FSR, but let's jump and check out FXAA, because I am curious about that. See how that compares to FSR2. Does that look better maybe at native? Who knows? Here's FXAA, and it's definitely much better than it was without any anti-aliasing. But is it better than FSR2? You know what? I'm not really sure, and I haven't done a direct comparison, but we're going to do a very quick one and then jump on with the rest of the review. And I apologize. I try to make these videos a little shorter, but I'm trying to squeeze in more information maybe than I should. But I figured this was probably relevant. Maybe you guys want to know. But let's jump and compare FXAA to FSR2 and see which one looks better. This is a tough one because I think overall FSR2 does a bit of a better job, but FXAA does a better job with the puddle flicker and some of the very distant flicker. But FSR2 does a better job in some other aspects, so I don't know. Maybe you guys decide. But we'll check out motion next. Well, this is FXAA and FSR2 in motion. What do you guys think? I'm not really sure. I mean, to me they look rather similar. They both, I guess, have their ups and downs and advantages and disadvantages, but overall I think they look similar. I would still have to say that FSR2 looks a little bit better overall. So now we're going to jump into the performance. Sorry that took a little longer than I thought it would, guys, but I figured you might want to know some of that information that I found out. But we'll jump real quick here. We don't have much to do. We've already looked at this area in the previous video, but looking at this, we're essentially getting almost double the performance to that of the 6800 XT at 1440p that we were. So, yeah. The 7900 XTX is a beast. It's an excellent 1440p GPU, I think, because I like high refresh rate. But it'll also do 4K, including this game, quite comfortably. So, but being at 1440p, that kind of gives us a bit more flexibility to look at some, a little bit of path tracing. This area is not very demanding. This is one of the least demanding areas. And also as far as the aliasing thing, this is actually one where it's the most noticeable because of the straight lines and thin lines. Once you're in the woods, it's actually not so bad. But let's take a look at some path tracing in this area, and then we're going to jump into the forest where it's a little bit more demanding and see how we do over there. But here we're getting about double the performance of the 6800 XT. Let's check out some reflections for path tracing here, because this is where you would notice them the most. Obviously in the forest you're not going to really notice it except for puddles. But so the transparency setting allows us to choose ray trace reflections on transparent surfaces like glass, water. As you can see here, we can see our own reflection. We can see across the street and all the boats. It looks actually quite nice for a low setting. This is a high setting in some other games, to be honest, with this level of quality. So it looks great, and the 7900 XTX is doing really well here. We're still at native, no FSR super resolution. However, there is an issue with low setting. Look at these artifacting on the water. And this isn't a Radeon thing. This happens on NVIDIA as well. There's also some noise as well if you look on the water here. That will go away once we put it to high. And our GPU should be able to handle that. So let's try putting that on high. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so it looks much better. Now there's still a bit of noise, but it still looks way better. Yeah, this looks really good.
Roger.
However, how useful would this be playing for the most of the game? From what I've seen, I don't know, because in this city you can notice them, and it looks great on cars too. Car surfaces and the glass windows, it looks pretty good. Now, let's see if we can do some of the more demanding stuff. And for this, I'll just drop to FSR quality right now. And we'll see what we can do here. Now, I've also noticed some other issues with path tracing when you set it to low. And I'll be able to show you more of that, I think, in the next area, in the woods. I don't think it's really worth it. I think you either have to go with
It'll only take a minute. I'll wait here.
High or maybe medium, but it does cause some issues when it's set to low. But right here it looks pretty good. Now those shadows, those nasty shadows, you know, those pixelated shadows look much better now that we've introduced some path tracing. They're still somewhat visible here, but definitely better than if it was disabled.
Take your time.
See, now that it's disabled, they're more pixelated, a little more defined. But why don't we try medium for... We'll leave the denoise until low because that can be a little costly, and we'll turn on direct lighting and see what happens. Okay. Okay, so we're at 52 FPS. I think this would be fine FPS if the next areas weren't more demanding, because the shadows do look better. The lighting does look quite a bit better with path tracing. It's definitely more atmospheric. Yeah, we're getting pretty good FPS here. With FSR quality, you can see some of that flickering is also much better, which is very strange to go from native to FSR quality and it looks better at 1440p. So let's see what else we can play around with, and then we'll go to the next area because there's not much more to do here. I mean, as far as rasterization, the 7900 XTX will it's just going to slay this, so there's no point. We'll jump on medium on the path trace indirect lighting, and then we'll raise the denoising quality a bit. Yeah, you can already see in the background image. It sucks that they don't remove this, make it 100% transparent so you can see the settings you're changing. Let's go medium and high here. Yeah, this looks really, really good now. Definitely more atmospheric. The denoising quality is much better. Now we can see the flags, shadows being reflected here, the flags that are up here on the poles. Whereas before, I think they were either pixels or non-existent. So now we can see that. We can see the reflection of the ice machine back there on the hood of the car, which looks pretty good. It's things that you really don't think about while you're playing, but it's like your eye knows that it looks more realistic.
I want to look around for a minute.
And you kind of find it more immersive, I feel. Now, look at the shadows on the van. They definitely look more realistic because the sun is being blocked by these trees. And you can see that reflected here. And we can also see the reflection of the ice machine again and the car's own mirror on the paint. There's still a bit of a noise here in the reflections on the glass here. You can see how, you know, how... I don't know, almost looks like static. Let's try increasing the denoising even higher, just to see if that improves at all. We'll leave the indirect lighting to that. Okay, so it's still noisy. What if... Almost looks like there's no denoiser going on at all. Let's try going all the way up to the max. So we'll set that to high here. Will that have any roll? Maybe not. So that does look a bit noisy, and that's kind of strange because if you go this way, the shadows look pretty good. So I think that must have something to do with the way the light shines. It's very, very interesting. But anyway, I think that's it for this area. Let's jump into the next foresty area. I mean, our FPS has dropped to the 30s now, so we'll jump onto the forest. Now we've made it into this next area, which is the forest while the sun is setting. And this is kind of how demanding the game it is pretty much most of the time. Right now I'm not very far into the game because I keep having to make these videos. And unfortunately you can have multiple saves until you get to the manual save spot, and then I won't have access to these areas anymore. But before we go on any further, let's go through the settings again. It's just we're back to 1440p native, everything maxed out, no path tracing of any kind.
I didn't get where it was killed.
And we're at 86 frames per second. So the 7900 XTX can do this very comfortably, and the game looks great. And the whole aliasing thing is actually not as noticeable here. Mostly noticeable, say, like if you look at where the sun is shining through the trees, but it's not as noticeable as it is in the town. So yeah, we're doing pretty good here. Now, before we go any further, I've said this many times, I think the game is one of the best looking games, with or without path tracing. It still looks amazing, very atmospheric, the lighting looks amazing. But say we wanted to enhance our lighting a little bit with a bit of path tracing. Let's look at this. So we're going to go and throw path trace indirect lighting to low. Okay. Now look at the background. See how it almost looks like, I don't know, you can see the lake behind. It's almost like that layer of fog that made it it actually made it look better, I think. Now looks all, you can see the, in the horizon, you can see where the mountains begin and the lake ends. Whereas before you couldn't see that. Now there's also quite a bit of flicker. Now what's happening here is our aliasing issues, plus with path tracing now we have to deal with a denoising situation. So it's stuff like this that I think set path tracing to low, it's not really worth it. Now let's go on medium and see what happens. Actually, I'm curious, what happens if we go to FSR quality? Will we be able to gain some of that back? You can tell FSR quality improved the flickering. And we're at 54 FPS, so this would be very playable. Let's go to medium and see if that improves at all. Now our frame rate's gonna go down probably a lot, so I don't think it'll be worth it really. But let's go put in direct lighting on. Yeah, it kind of looks the same, but I think we would have to increase the path trace indirect lighting up higher to get over that. If we go to high, there we go. So now that we set transparency on high as well, now it looks the way it should look. And you know what? At 30 something FPS, this is pretty much everything maxed out. I guess it would be the console experience. So I don't know. That will depend up to you. But this is what I wanted to show, that having these settings to a mix of low and medium can result into the image looking worse in some cases than better, right? Let's try throwing these to medium and leave transparency on high, because that seemed to take care of that lake situation back there. Okay, so at 43, 40 something FPS, let's try dropping FSR to balance. Now I'm not a huge fan of dropping FSR to balance at 1440p, but why not? Actually, it doesn't look that bad. There's a bit of flicker, but it doesn't look that bad. And we're in the 50s. So let's go over the settings again. We'll make our way down the hill. And then it'll be up to you guys what you want to do with your settings. But you can see here that we're in a mixture of, we're pretty much on medium with our path tracing. And transparency to high. I think you need transparency to high to mask over some of the imperfections. If I was to use path tracing, I think I would go with these settings and this
I've been
card.
thinking more about the cult of the tree.
The image quality actually
What
looks
sort of
really,
cult
really good.
refers to themselves
But I
as a
would
cult?
probably stick to full rasterize and get the extra performance, because we gave up pretty much half of our performance to turn some of these settings on. Although it does look beautiful. So I guess that's up to you. And this is with path tracing off. Is it worth that huge hit to performance? I don't think so. Well, this video turned out to be much longer than I thought it would be. Maybe I am cramming too much information into it, but I'm still learning. So I think that I personally would play this game without any path tracing, because you're getting really good performance. The game looks amazing anyway, and I just don't think it's really worth it with the low settings on path tracing, as I showed. It can introduce artifacting. I don't think it really begins to look good until you go to medium and then medium high, which, I mean, the performance hit is too great. I think the game looks stunning, and at the end of the day, you're playing the same game. I even said that I would play the game on PlayStation 5 if I didn't have my computer. And I would still be enjoying it pretty much just the same, because it is the same game and it looks beautiful even on the PlayStation 5. But the way it looks now, it's much better than the PS5, obviously. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I apologize for it being much longer, probably than it should be. It will deter people from watching the whole thing. But I kind of wanted to talk about the, the FSR thing and the INI file that I dug into a little bit just to see if FXAA would be any better and to kind of dig into this FSR at native thing a little bit more. So, yeah. If you guys did like this, give it a like. I would really appreciate it. And if you want more content like this, consider subscribing. And I thank you for watching it if you did watch it this far. And I will see you in the next one.